Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before we start with today's video, I would like to thank you all who have watched my video on Introduction to Ansible Part 1. Here is a quick recap of that video. In that video, we basically discussed about the benefits of Ansible, why the Ansible is so popular among the configuration management tool like Puppet, Chef and etc. Being an open source and being a powerful automation engine, the Ansible helps you in provisioning the environments, configuring the servers, automating your day-to-day stuff by writing a simple playbook or an ad hoc command. Also, it helps you to be apply the security patches, upgrade the servers with the latest patches like Linux, Oracle, and many other. The other benefit of the Ansible is being an agentless. All you need to do is install one Ansible on the master node, and then you can have it connected to the multiple servers by using a simple SSH command. So these are the benefits of Ansible. We also discuss about what is Ansible Tower. It is basically a GUI which gives you an overview about how your host, how your infrastructure and couple of other things looks when you log into Ansible Tower UI. So in today's video, we are going to basically talk about more on the ad hoc commands and let us get familiar with some of the terminologies used in Ansible. So let's get started with the another video on Ansible. Let's together understand what are the Ansible ad-hoc commands and how to install an Ansible on your EC2 instance. So before we start with the installation, let's get familiar with some of the terminologies which you should be aware whenever you're using the Ansible. The first one is the control node. The control node is a machine where your Ansible is installed. It can run the Ansible commands and playbooks by invoking Ansible or an Ansible playbook command from any control node where the Ansible is installed. Moving to the next one is the manage node. What are these managed nodes? These are nothing but servers which are managed with Ansible. Um, the nodes are sometimes called as host. The Ansible is not installed on these managed nodes. That's why Ansible is called as agentless configuration management tool. Moving to the next one is inventory. As the name suggests, inventory is nothing but the list of managed nodes, which will be managed by Ansible. An inventory file is sometimes called as a host file. You need to specify the IP addresses for each managed node which you want an Ansible to manage from the control node. Moving to the next one is module. We will be going in depth of what are the modules in the upcoming session and how can we use those modules in our playbook. But for now, let's understand the definition of module. The module is nothing but a units of code which Ansible executes. You can invoke the single module with a task on different modules in a playbook. Now, the next is what is the task? The task is nothing but the action which Ansible will execute, and you can provide that in a playbook or it can be an ad hoc command which you're giving to an Ansible to execute it. Moving to the playbook. The playbook, as the name suggests, is a book where you have the list of tasks which you want to run by Ansible. The playbooks can include variables as well as the tasks. what language this playbook is written is? It's written in a simple YAML file. A YAML language is nothing but a key value prayer, and it is easy to read, write, share, and understand without any no coding skills required. Moving to the next one is the facts. We will be understanding these facts when we are going to execute some of the playbooks, or we will be learning how to write a playbook or how to read a playbook. So, Ansible facts are the data related to your remote systems, which can include operating system, IP addresses, attached file systems, and many more. How can you access those data? By using a simple variable Ansible facts. Moving to the next one, we have something called as a handlers. We will be using these handlers in our upcoming playbook session, and we will definitely read one of the playbook as how to write the handlers and how to execute it. Let's now understand the definition of handlers. The handlers are just like a normal task in Ansible playbook, but they run only when it contains a notify directive. If you are familiar with Java, uh, we have certain steps when you execute a particular thread in Java. It has run, notify, wait, join, and couple of other actions which basically notifies the thread which has been waiting for quite long to execute. The similar way the handlers does the same functionality, it notifies the tasks to be executed by the Ansible when it has something notify directive. Moving to the next one, we have something called as a role. We will be understanding the functionality of role in our upcoming playbook session. But as of now, let's learn the definition and get the familiar with the term roles. The role helps you to share and reuse of your Ansible tasks. And these Ansible tasks can be a simple folder configuration file, which basically tells Ansible to which package to execute, which file to execute, which command to install or run on your manage nodes. I hope you got a familiar with the terminologies of Ansible whenever you are going to use the Ansible in your day-to-day work. Moving to the next one is how to install an Ansible on your machine. In this slide, I'm going to walk you through of how to install the Ansible on EC2 instances. You will find lots of videos on YouTube which will show you practically how to execute these commands. But my main intention here is to get a familiar with the commands, so or with the steps, so when you're executing those on EC2 instance, you know what exactly you're doing. So the first one is, so you have logged into AWS account and you have created the EC2 instance. Now you want to install the Ansible on that machine. So the first command you need to do is make yourself as a super user. How can you do that? By executing a simple command called as sudo su. Once you have made yourself as a super user, you can now install the latest packages on your EC2 instances. How can you do that? By executing sudo yum update -y. When you use -y, that means you are telling to execute all the packages without prompting it for yes or no option. Moving to the third one is an important. The Hence, if you're installing an Ansible on Linux, you need to basically install a package called as EPL, which is Extra Package for Enterprise Linux. How can you do that? By simple executing yum install -y EPL dash release. It will install the latest package on your EC2 instance on which the Linux is installed. Then once you have done with all these three steps. Now the main is to install the Ansible. How can you install the Ansible? Is by simply executing yum install Ansible -y. Once the Ansible is installed on your Linux machine or Linux machine, how can you basically check the version of Ansible which I'm using? A simple command is ansible-version. Now you have done with the installation. Let's now configure the basic things needed to work or use the Ansible. So all you need to do is now to start adding the manage nodes in the inventory file of Ansible. And where you can do that, you need to go to etc Ansible host. How can you access that file? Simple, by executing a command sudo nano etc Ansible host. An editor will open and you can start typing the IP addresses of your managed nodes which you want Ansible to manage. Once you have done this, if you want to view the inventory file, all you need to do is by executing a simple adhoc command called as ansible-inventory-list-y. The list will list all the IP addresses which you have specified in the inventory file. Now, let's establish the SSH connection between the control node and the managed nodes. Remember, Ansible is an agentless, so you don't need to enter the password or install any agent on your managed nodes. All it does is uses the SSH key to basically connect to your managed nodes. How can you generate the SSH key? All you need to do is execute a command called as ssh keygen -t RSA. Once you have generated the keygen, now the next task is to copy the keys or the public key to the manage nodes which you want your Ansible to manage. How can you do that? By executing a simple command ssh-copy-id manage node and the machine name of that manage node or that server. Once you have done this, now let's test the connectivity. The simple adhoc command which Ansible uses is Ansible all -m ping. M means module. I will explain that in the later slides. All here, why we have specified the all? Because we want to connect to each and every IP addresses which we have specified in our Ansible inventory file. I hope you got the basic understanding of how to install the Ansible on your EC2 instance. Now, let's together understand another important concept in the Ansible called as Ansible configuration file. The default location for this Ansible configuration file is etc ansible.cfg. So when you open this file, you will see the two sessions in that. The first one is defaults and the second one is privilege escalation. On the right side, you can see the picture which basically tells you what are the key components defined in each of this session. So let's get one by one on these. The number one, the default session. So here are some of the important settings you need to be aware whenever you're using the Ansible configuration file. The first one, inventory, as the name suggests, it is the list of file. All you need to give is the path of your inventory file. Remember, we discussed about etc Ansible host in our previous slides. So you can give the path where your inventory file is. You can create an inventory file on in your home directory and you can give the path into that. Why this is needed? Because Ansible should know which is the inventory file or which is the path I need to go and get the inventory file and execute it. The second one is the remote user. Ansible needs to know which user you want to connect to the manage hosts and run the playbooks. The number third is forks. This is nothing but the number of hosts you want Ansible to, all the processes you want to run on those hosts in parallel. The default is the 5. Moving to the next one is the host underscore key underscore checking. This is very important. As we are going to make SSH connection or a passwordless connection, you need to basically make sure that this is turned as false. The default value of that host underscore key underscore checking is true. Moving to the next session is the privilege escalation. So let's learn some of the important settings of the privilege escalation session. The first one is become. As the name suggests, become means specify where to allow or disallow the privilege action. This is defaultly false. This is what that you want to become a pseudo user and you want to execute certain uh, adhoc commands of Ansible. The next is become method. As I mentioned, this is nothing but you're making yourself as sudo, right? So you need to basically give some, you need to specify the privileges of the user to execute the ad hoc task specified in the playbook. The next is become user. Specify the user you want to become through a privilege escalation, as the name suggests. The default is the root. The next one is become underscore arcs underscore pass. This is basically you specify whether to ask or not ask for privilege action password. So in this case, it's going to be false. The default is false. That means you're not going to ask and Ansible is not going to prompt you for the password to be entered when connecting to the manage nodes. Remember, we have made it as root, we have made it as sudo, and we have given all the permissions of root or a super user to that particular user, right? So in the diagram which is listed on the slide, we are making our user root as a pseudo super user to execute all the ad hoc tasks specified in the playbook as well as the ad hoc commands. I hope you got the basic understanding how does the ansible.cfg file looks, and it's very important whenever you're basically going to start using Ansible for your day-to-day work. The next and important topic which is important to know in your day-to-day work is the ad hoc commands. I personally use these commands in my playbooks or in my YAML file to basically check the certain things after the infrastructure upgrade is done or any maintenance activity has happened on my Linux machine. Yeah, and other stuff, Linux patches and couple of other stuff. So the first command here to check is the ping command. Ping command is basically used for checking the connectivity of the server. We use ping and the server name in Ansible to check the manage nodes connectivity. You use Ansible all minus m ping. M means module, as I mentioned, right? And pattern is basically you can give a pattern to check a particular uh, uh, and we'll discuss that later on, but pattern is nothing but a host name or what do you want a pattern to be. If I want to do a connectivity check for all the IP addresses, I will use all, right? So the next, if I want to check a specific host connectivity, I will use Ansible minus m. M is nothing but a module and the module name is ping and you are using a host. If I want to check the uptime of all my hosts, when was last time my I would say the host was rebooted or a server was rebooted, all I need to execute is Ansible all, as I mentioned, is the pattern, which is basically the list of IP addresses of your managed nodes. Minus M, again, the module, and the command is up minus a uptime. You can see in the right side the picture of that command, what each command or what are the syntax means. Uh, Moving to the next, if I want to check the inventory list, we have specified that in earlier slides, Ansible all dash list, which will give you the list of all your hosts IP addresses or your host name. Moving to the next, if I want to check what modules are present in Ansible, there is a simple call as Ansible doc minus L. Ansible doc is nothing but, in Linux we have something called as a man page, where it's used for any help to know how that command needs to be executed, or what are the options you need to pass for that command. So this is something same like a help page of Ansible. And if I want to find out a particular module in an Ansible document, all I need to do is Ansible dash document minus L grep pipe grep yum. This will give me the yum module details. What are of the options you can use with the yum? What is yum used for? Okay, moving to the next is the important command. If I want to basically reboot the Pacific server using the username. Okay, this command is Ansible the server name which I need to reboot, which is pattern minus a, basically the module options, which is has been reboot, minus u is the username by which user you want your server to be reboot. Every server has the owner, right? And you want to reboot it. So if I'm a system admin and I want to reboot the server using the root accesses or using the username called Ansible, I can specify that as well. Moving to the next slide is some of the other commands which you need to use in your day-to-day stuff when you're dealing with Ansible. If I want to copy the file from one directory to another directory, I can use a command called as Ansible the host which I want to copy, minus m, the module for copying the file is Ansible built in copy, and minus a, again the module options, the source and the destination. Now if you want to delete a file, right, there is there is a simple command to do that. In Unix we basically use remove command to delete a file, but here in Ansible there is something called as a state equals to absent. That means it will not, it will basically delete your file. So the syntax for that is Ansible hostname minus m Ansible built-in dot file. What we are deleting a file on the remote host. So built-in dot file is the module, and you need to give the destination of the path or the path of on the remote server where you want to delete that file from. Moving to the next, an important thing I use on my day-to-day basis is to start a specific service on my remote host. So there is a simple command for doing that, and this module I use is Ansible hostname minus m, which is module Ansible built-in dot service minus a, which service I want to start. In this case I'm using httpd, so and I want that to start, so I'll use state started. If I want to restart, I will use restarted. If I want to stop a specific service, I'll use state equals to stop. Now, there can be a scenario where you want to upgrade all the host with the latest packages. Like, say, you have thousands of servers, and system admin wants to now update all those thousand servers packages in one shot, rather than logging manually into each of the server. That's why we are using Ansible, right? So to update the packages on all the hosts, there is a simple command Ansible all. All means whatever the IP addresses or the host name we have in that etc Ansible/host or on your host or on your home directory inventory file. Ansible will basically pick those IP addresses, and then you need to execute a command -a yum update -y. So it will execute all your updates, or it will update all the packages, necessary packages on all your host. Now, if you want to use a shell command in Ansible, you have a module for that. All you need to do is call that module, and that module name is shell. If I want to use the shell scripts, I'll use that. If I want to use the shell commands like cat, find, uname, uh, uh, who am I, finger, and a couple of other things, right? So let's use that. Let's get familiar with one or two examples here. So the first one is Ansible hostname, definitely on which host I want to execute, -m, the module, and the module name is shell, and -a is the options to that module, what you want to execute. In the first one here is lscpu. I want to check the CPU, and what I did, I cut it with the head -n5. So show me the top 5 lines when I execute lscpu command on my Unix server, right? Now, if I want to check who am I in Unix, right? I execute who am I, but and I can do that the same command using Ansible as well. All I need to do is Ansible hostname -m shell -a who am I. Now, if I want to execute a particular command, there is a module for that in Ansible. See how Ansible is so friendly, and you can link those things with the Linux if you are using Linux operating system on day-to-day basis. So the command here is Ansible host -m command -a, and then I use the cat if I want to see the contents of the file. So how simple is it? So these are some of the commands which I use on my day-to-day. I hope this small presentation helped you to get familiar with some of the terminologies related to Ansible, and as well as getting familiar with the ad hoc commands which you can use on your day-to-day basis. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would request you to subscribe it, and please help me out with your comments because it keeps me motivated and also help me in improving my content. Until then, take care. Bye bye.